3 tools that you can begin to adjust in your team to gain that productivity, gaining that time back. And certainly during workforce energy management programs, we work on workflow and different types of adjustments we can make within the team to gain that productivity without adding more. But the 3 trends that I'm seeing over and over again across different industries, across different positions, are the ones I'm going to go through today. The first one is meetings. You'll see on this channel different type of videos to facilitate meetings. How do we establish agendas with a purpose and time slots and that ownership and due dates at the end? But the biggest thing I'm seeing and the trends that I'm seeing where we're losing time, we're losing productivity, is how a meeting ends. How meetings end right now is we just continue on even if we're done 10 minutes early. We have some chit chat where we go down black holes and other problems that are not part of the purpose of this meeting. Or we set the meeting too long that we naturally get sidetracked. So naturally we have meetings that are 30 minutes long or 60 minutes long, but what if we didn't? What if for that 60-minute meeting, that 1-hour meeting, we had it for 45 minutes? Right? Tightening that timeline so that we stay focused. For that 30-minute meeting, what if we only gave it 20 minutes? Again, it keeps the focus and it gets people to prep for the meeting because it's a tighter timeline. And in Parkinson's law, your work will expand for the time available. So if you give something more time, we will naturally fill it. And what I'm seeing in meetings, even with clients, is I'll set up a half-hour meeting, we'll check in on our program, and we'll be done about 20-minute mark, and then we'll just go into chit chat. And when it's of value, when it's beneficial, certainly do that. We don't have to be antisocial or isolated, but oftentimes we get into other topics. We get into those black holes of other troubleshooting that we don't need to get into right now. And that's when you feel that exhausted state, because you go from meeting after meeting after meeting. Sometimes even that cognitive whiplash where you're swinging from one subject to the next, a harsher subject to a lighter subject, and vice versa. But we're not giving ourselves time to breathe, to think. And it's okay. And we need to be okay with ending the meeting when it's done. So if you get to that 20-minute mark, if you get to that 15-minute mark of those half-hour and 1-hour meetings, it's okay to just end the meeting. And you can even be very transparent and say that. So, hey, great job on staying focused, group. It looks like we're done with the meeting. Why don't you give yourself some time to think, get things together before you head into your next meeting, your next task. And people love that buffer room. Even on the webinars that I host, the free workforce energy management webinars, if we're done at the 25-minute mark and I got my bullet points done, I'm good to go. I sign off, because why milk that half hour? Could I fill it? Absolutely. I'm a talker, but that's not the purpose of that webinar, that topic, that meeting. So be okay with ending it early. Be okay with shortening your meetings to maintain that focus, get people to prep for the meeting, and really keep that attentiveness, because that's the purpose. You don't need to solve everything in this meeting. You solve it for the purpose of what the outcome you want of the meeting, and then you go. The second trend I'm seeing where we're losing productivity and definitely energy is ineffective pass-offs. Let me take a scenario for you. We have sales selling something, a product, a service. And then we have customer service internally processing it, talking to the customers, maybe even working with a technical team or other people who are going to execute that product and service. What is happening between those two parties? Oftentimes we don't take time for that process flow between two departments. One that's having that front-face conversation, getting the orders, and then the one that's actually executing it or passing on the information. So when you look at ineffective pass-offs, that's where the waste comes in. That's where the energy drains and the productivity is lost because someone's not using the system, someone's using a different system, someone's not putting the right information into the system. And once you get those two groups together and really go through what are the steps from order to execution to the customer, even to follow-up, and where are we putting information? Where are we passing off information? Where does someone stop and the next person start? You can start to clean up these ineffective pass-offs to actually be a nice process flow, that workflow that gains momentum and energy, naturally giving quality, And you don't have to drain the team doing it. Now, interestingly enough, some of the clients I work with, when we look at how many hours are spent on rework, trying to find information that should be there, having conversations that should have already been had, when we look at process flow, it is quite high, the amount of hours that are spent per week throughout these departments from ineffective pass-offs. And of course, you have that hidden energy drain of resentment and conflict that's building because things aren't being done in the way that they want it done or that they need in order to get their job done. So when we talk about getting across departments on the same page, we're not just talking about an email that goes out about our initiative or the new customer that we have. We're talking about the actual process flow from order to execution, and how is that going to be handled, who owns what systems we're going to use, what will be the information flow. Now, if you can't already see the productivity that you will gain by ending a meeting very well, by cleaning up those ineffective pass-offs into a nice workflow, let's talk about the third one. This is the hidden elephant in most of the rooms that I'm in, and probably why they're bringing me in as a third party, and that's conflict. Now, I'm not saying conflict is great, but healthy conflict is. It's addressing the things that matter and having opposition in a way that can be into an intellectual debate, into a challenging, a traditional way of working, to a new way of working. It is addressing gaps that need to be addressed and feeling safe to do so. But a lot of us aren't comfortable with conflict. And naturally, I got good at conflict because I was in manufacturing. I was the labor union contact. I was in HR 1 for many, many years. So I was the one handling some of those conflict conversations. So I got really good at mediating, reading people, meeting them in the middle. And I realized there is more power and momentum forward in addressing that conflict, not only early, but in the right way, than avoiding it. Now, we already know the energy that's lost when we avoid conflict or let that conflict build because we're sleeping on it, we're letting it go days. But also the time and productivity that's lost from the gossip from it, when we're not addressing the things that matter, when we're not addressing those elephants in the room, when we feel like we can't speak up in meetings or with our team. That's where gossip and drama starts to also drain the energy and the productivity because you have chats going on, you have that gossip cooler, you have people speaking behind closed doors, wasting again time when it could have been handled already in the meeting. And most of us know the difference when you've been in a meeting or a team and there's some conflict happening. Conflict is part of life, it's part of work. And a leader or someone in that room handles the conflict very well. They don't discard it, they address it in a very healthy way. They acknowledge what's going on, the voice, and then they also talk about how are we going to move forward, coming to a resolution. Again, that conflict, whole circle, is released. And you leave that room and you're like, whew, that was good. We addressed some things that really need to be talked about. We talked about the elephant in the room, and we were proactive about it before it escalated, and we worked it out. We came up with a solution. But we've also been part of these teams and meetings where conflict is not addressed. It's disregarded, it's avoided, or it's handled very poorly. And then that makes the whole situation and team dynamics even worse because now no one wants to bring anything up. No one wants to address the gap or the elephant in the room because they're afraid of that conflict. So a lot of times in workforce energy management programs, I'm working on getting people comfortable with conflict in a very healthy way on how do we bring it up? How do we address it when it comes our way? How do we give feedback? How do we create the psychological safety atmosphere that we can move from conflict into healthy conflict faster instead of ruminating on it for days, letting it build up to this big monster? So between learning how to facilitate and end that meeting, fixing up some of those ineffective pass-offs, and getting comfortable with healthy conflict is not only going to gain you time, it's going to gain that natural productivity that people want to be around. Because stress has been here, stress will always be. It's our response to it that matters.